Hello, it's 1874. It's a preview show. It's Arsenal against Villa on Saturday tea time. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, thankfully joined by David Reid, so I don't have to do another show on my own. Already done one this morning looking back at the Everton win. So if you haven't watched that, do go back and check it out if you can bring yourself to listen to me talk for 20 minutes on my own. This show is sponsored by Luke Roper. TVV20 is the code to get 20% off everything that Luke have to offer. David, fresh from being on the telly this morning and this afternoon, off air 18 minutes ago for Transfer Talk on Sky Sports News. How was it?
Yeah, it was a good show. Thank you. Yeah, all good. I feel like we're kind of a midway point now in the window, and there's still work to be done by a lot of teams. So I feel like we're building.
Any Villa tidbits this morning on the show or this afternoon on the show?
No, not so much. They don't like to talk about Villa when you're not there. So
I don't know to talk about them very much when I am there, in fairness, either. We might get a couple of minutes here and there. Dave is now live from the Sky Sports News broom cupboard to preview the game with me. You look very. I know that you've got makeup on right now.
You can tell, yeah.
I know.
I've just come straight from air to here. So
yeah. Did the makeup? Did they do your hair today as well? Your hair's looking exquisite.
No, that's all me, mate. That's all me.
That's all you, the Dave Reid special. Right then, let's talk about the game. Villa obviously went there and won 2-0 last year, Dave. One of Villa's best wins of the season. Maybe the only team that beat Arsenal at the Emirates in 2024 in the league. That could be factually incorrect because I can't remember if anyone's beaten them there this season. But at the time, at last season, second half of the season, we were the only team in 2024 that had gone to the Emirates and won. We've had some good days there. We've had some bad days there as well. What are you thinking this time round? What do you think it's going to be for Villa?
Well, I think to go back to the game there last season, I think that was probably one of the defining games, really, of Unai Emery's time in charge so far. It was one of the best performances I think a lot of people have seen at the Emirates against the Mikel Arteta side. There were times where Villa had to hang in there. And then particularly in the second half, Villa really managed to control the game and keep Arsenal where they wanted them, really, and fully deserved that victory at the Emirates last time out. And I think putting it into context, Villa started the game last time without Kamara, without Douglas Luiz, which was obviously the first choice midfield two at the time. Tielemans was playing, McGinn started in central midfield, and it was in between the Lille games as well in the Conference League. And that just shows the actual intensity that Villa were having to put into games around that period, and then to continue that in that game against Arsenal and really put the kibosh on their Premier League title tilt in that game. That was the moment really where the wheels fell off for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, and the Premier League title pretty much went beyond them from that game. So can Villa repeat that? It's Arsenal, as much as people are saying, are in a bit of a sticky patch. They're on the same number of points this season as at the same stage last season, and they went on a terrific run in the second half of the season and were well in that title race. So I do expect Arsenal to get better in the second half of the season. And look, I think it's a difficult place to go. But you feel like Villa have got a bit of momentum, really, after the last few weeks and the last few games. You feel like Villa are starting to show some of their best qualities, and I think the game against Everton was a perfect example of showing that battling, fighting quality, particularly away from home.
Yeah, I think both teams come into the game on Saturday in a good place off the back of wins on Wednesday night. So I think both teams will be feeling good going into this. I think Arsenal now are just in the position whenever they don't win a game, it's seen as a crisis. They're seen as bottlers, when really factually both of those things are incorrect. I think they're still well in the title race. If you look at the league table, I know Liverpool have got that game in hand, but Liverpool have been brilliant this season, but they're not winning every game like they were earlier on in the season. They've stumbled a little. It's still very, very high standards. Don't get me wrong, but I do think I feel sorry for Arsenal because every time they don't win a game, I don't know what it is about that club. It's just perceived as an absolute disaster, and I don't go along with that. I think they're in a good position, and I would expect them to have a strong second half of the season. I guess the caveat with what you've just said between this season and last season is they don't look as strong because they've got a lot of injuries at the moment. They probably do need to do something in January.
Yeah, I mean, Saka's the big one for me.
Huge.
I think, this season, before his injury, he was projected for 30 plus goal involvements. And when you're missing a player of that quality who's been so good for them, it's down to the other players really to step up. And because he's been carrying quite a bit of the burden in terms of their creative output, it puts more into focus and brings into sharpness really the fact that Martin Odegaard, since returning from his injury, hasn't been at his top level that he's capable of. Gabriel Martinelli as well hasn't perhaps shown the level that he has shown in recent years. So I feel like it's down to those other players to step up. Kai Havertz is a one that Arsenal supporters will fairly easily point the finger at. But Arsenal have been trying to sign a new striker and a new number 9, someone that can lead the line for the last year or so. They've been trying to find the right kind of striker. And I think at the start of the season, if you'd have asked Arsenal fans, well, is Havertz the answer? Is he going to get you 20, 25 goals a season? They would have all said no. So it just seems to happen that when he misses a few chances or misses a couple of big chances, it's easy to point the finger at him, when actually, if you look back at the start of the season, he was scoring goals and everyone was saying, wow, Mikel Arteta's unlocked Kai Havertz. And now, just because they had a couple of sticky results, it's easy to point the finger at him.
Yeah, players miss chances. Havertz at the start of the season was taking most of his chances away, from what I remember. I'm not saying he's the long-term solution for Arsenal at centre-forward, but I do genuinely believe that had there been a centre-forward out there that Arsenal felt was gettable, that they thought would improve them, I think Arteta would have made that happen. He's got a lot of power at Arsenal, given what he's done in the last few years. And like I said, I think they get a lot of unjustified stick. They've jumped an incredible amount in the last 2 or 3 years to make themselves genuine title contenders. A couple of seasons ago, they were finishing 5th behind Tottenham. So I think the progress that they've made actually doesn't get enough credit. And Arteta and Arsenal always feel like they're looming on the edge of a crisis. And I just think that's a narrative that's a bit lazy and isn't really true. For me, Villa played well. Like Dave did what they had to. I said earlier in the show on my own that they probably made some aspects of that game a lot easier than they should have been, whilst also making some things a little bit more difficult as well. But 1-0 away, a clean sheet, quietly going about our business, because that's 3 wins out of 3 in 2025. I assume it's going to be the same system and the same bunch of players that start against Arsenal. And I quite liked that system last night. Bit of variety, building up in a back 3 with Kamara. Both fullbacks allowed to go forward, but then that doesn't really hurt Villa too much defensively when they do, because they've still got the 3. Tielemans drops back to make a 2 with Onana, and then Rodgers and Ramsey close to Watkins. I'm expecting the same team. I'm certainly expecting Watkins to lead the line again, despite Duran being fully rested for that 90 minutes against Everton.
Yeah, I mean, the Everton setup was almost a continuation of the second half against West Ham in the cup, with Kamara really dropping into that right centre-back and Matty Cash providing width. And then out of possession, Morgan Rodgers was on the right-hand side in the pretty standard Villa setup of a 4-4-2 off the ball. And then as soon as Villa won the ball back, Rodgers was running into those central areas to provide danger in one of the number 10 positions, and then Matty Cash was overlapping and providing the width on the left hand side. That also then gives Tielemans the ability to drop into those 2 central midfield positions like he did against West Ham and provide those line breaking passes, which he did against West Ham from a deeper position than picking the ball up as he has been recently in the number 10. Now, my thought would be, does Unai Emery look back at the game at the Emirates last season, and does he follow a similar blueprint this time around? And that would mean loading the starting 11 with players good in transition, players that can carry the ball, and players with a little bit of 1v1 and pace. So that might say to me that perhaps Morgan Rodgers will start in the 10 and Leon Bailey will start out wide on the right-hand side. Tielemans and Kamara would start in the central midfield, and Ramsey would start on the left. And I think what he did against Arsenal last time was Zaniolo on the left-hand side. It was Watkins and Rodgers in the 4 positions and Diaby on the right-hand side. And that gave him then the option of bringing on Bailey from the bench in the second half for a little bit of a differential player coming off and against tired legs, and that seemed to work in the game as well. Now that means maybe, Marlon, you would think I'm pretty sure he's been registered now, so that would make him available. He would offer some pace and differential from the bench in that formation. And then it also gives Villa the option then to, if greater control is needed, maybe bring on another central midfielder. The only other question mark then is about how the back four is lined up, because away from home in big games, and particularly games against Arsenal, Diego Carlos has been, putting in some of his best performances in those games away from home.
He won't be there.
And the fact is that with Diego Carlos's future uncertain, you would think it's extremely unlikely that he's going to be involved at all this month right now. So that means then that Villa actually look a little bit short if they wanted to play the three natural centre-backs with Konsa drifting over to right-back. So maybe Matty Cash does start in the right-back position and he plays a more withdrawn role at right-back and is kind of back to what Villa have done previously, where he plays a more reserved third centre-back role and a bombing on overlapping role. So I think there are questions. I don't think it's a guarantee that he kind of sticks with that, sticks with the setup that he did against Everton. You just feel like it might be a horses for courses. And if he thinks that runners and players in transition are going to be really important against Arsenal, then maybe he goes back to a blueprint that has worked for him last time.
Just laughing at Ty Bracey telling me to smile in the chat. Smiling after last night, Ty, of course, always smiling. I think this game is absolutely made for Ramsey and Rodgers in transition. It's the perfect game. That's why I think he'll go for the same 11. I think what Villa did last night will suit them well and carry them well for this game. Kamara's absolutely vital. Man of the match last night by a country mile. Absolutely brilliant numbers that I went into earlier in the Everton review. But I just think Ramsey and Rodgers. I remember Rodgers hurting them last year from what I can remember, and I just think it's built for those two to play where they played last night, really, and Villa to play in the way that they did last night. I think that can really upset Arsenal, because the game last night, Tottenham did cause Arsenal problems in transition. They do allow space, Arsenal. As good as they are defensively, there is space, and I think the way we play, I think we're a difficult opponent for them tomorrow. I don't think they'll be looking forward to this game. They'll obviously believe they can win as well. I'm not saying Villa are going to win, but I really hugely believe that we can go there and get 3 points or pick up a draw at least. They won't be coming up against Rodgers, coming up against Ramsey. I think we can go with what we did last night and it will stand us in good stead, Dave.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, Arsenal will be favourites going into this game. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that Villa are going there. And a lot of the neutrals will be expecting Arsenal to win the game. From my point of view, I think Morgan Rodgers has been in such good form. You feel like the quicker you can get the ball into him, the better. And if Villa start the same way as they did against Everton, that means Rodgers out of possession being on the right-hand side. And for me, I just feel like he needs to be central earlier. So as soon as Villa win the ball back, then you can hit him a bit earlier, rather than having to just be a bit more patient as you were against Everton and allowing him the time to get into those 10 positions and then to find him. Against Everton, Villa were very patient when they had the ball. And I think also, there's going to be an element of Villa are going to have to keep the ball well. So, and Rodgers is so good at being able to hold people off and take a bit of the pressure off. That's why I kind of think maybe that Rodgers will start in one of the forward positions rather than a kind of wide. People know what I mean when I say out of possession. He started on the right, and then on the ball, Villa were in a 10. So Rodgers was in a 10. So that's my only reasoning. But yeah, I mean, Arsenal will give you chances. It's about absolute ultimate concentration against this Arsenal side, because we know how dangerous they are from set pieces, and we know how many weapons they have in that team. So yeah, it's about ultimate concentration against Mikel Arteta's team.
I mean, last night was a good warm-up for the set pieces, wasn't it? And Tyrone Mings, it felt like won every header from corners, so he'll be vital again. Just want to say hello to my old friend Eddie Montenegro from New York Villains. I think he's meant to say freezing there, to be honest. If it's a frigid morning commute, it's not been a good morning commute for him. Says he would take a draw at the moment and hoping Ollie can build on his goal against Everton. What a goal. When I went to New York, however many years ago I went to New York and I watched a game at the Legends Lounge with all the New York villains. Looked after me. An absolute treat. Took me to a lovely Mexican restaurant and I was an absolute drunken disgrace there that I'm sure he remembers very well. But yeah,
not for the first time, eh?
Oh, not for the first time, Dave. Just wanted to give a shout out to Eddie. What a lovely, lovely guy. Right then, let's see what's going on in the old chat. You said about like Arsenal will. Sorry, Villa. I can't even remember what you said now. You said Arsenal will. You said one of us will give up chances, but I guess that's the case for both sides. Arsenal will give Villa chances. It's about whether they can take them. But Arsenal have had a lot of chances in the last few games and haven't necessarily taken them all. So it could be I think it might be a high-scoring game at the weekend.
I mean, Villa are mostly involved in high-scoring games. It feels like
not last night, David.
Well, no, not last night, and that I think that is a confidence boost defensively. Anyway, I think first half you might feel like I mean, Villa lacked a little bit of ruthlessness again in that first half against Everton.
Really big chances though.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is definitely a plus. And I think second half, it felt like they were much more clinical. Obviously, the goal came, but it did feel like almost like a last season performance from Villa away from home, where I think on the whole they controlled the game well against Everton, but it was a real fight. And I think Villa are going to have to show those qualities in the second half of the season. And I don't think Villa have been at their best. They've certainly not been at the level they were last season at the start of this season. But it does feel like they're building towards that level again. And maybe it's a good test against Arsenal now, just to gauge how far Villa have come.
Yeah, Rachel Insel-Lewis trying to do our job, really, Dave, trying to get a spot on the old transfer team. So Arsenal are talking to Seska about signing him. Was that one that you covered this morning, or the ITK from Rachel? Who knows?
Well, Sesko is one that they've been tracking for a while. They wanted to sign him in the summer, and they were quoted a big price. And eventually, I think the player decided that he wanted to stay there. Now, if Sesko became available, Arsenal would be all over it because he's been a long-term target for them. So, and often January is about trying to expedite something that you were going to do in the summer anyway. So if they were getting feelers from the Sesko camp that a deal could be done in January, I'm sure Arsenal will be investigating it. But that's not something that I've heard at the moment.
Yeah, John Duran didn't get on last night. Ronan's asking, do you think leaving Duran on the bench last night was a message to him? I would say no. I think I spoke earlier in the Everton pod that I did, that I think it was important to try and keep the shape and keep what we were doing, and that's why he didn't make substitutions. I explained it a lot better in the Everton video, so go back and watch or listen to that if you want. But there's no doubt John Duran will come on in this game. I'm pretty sure against Arsenal. I think he's being saved for Tuesday against Monaco. But Watkins should absolutely start after a goal, shouldn't he? You know, he's a player that scores his goal in bursts. Scores his goals in bursts. I think it's the right call to carry on with him, but I'd be surprised if we didn't see John Duran 2 games in a row.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was a message to him not bringing him on. I think you're right. It was just about how the game was panning out. Villa needed to control the game, and Ollie Watkins was physically looking good. And I just think making that change for John Duran, you know, he's got to be on it from the first second he steps onto the pitch. And if there's any lapse in concentration, then it felt like Everton were ready to punish Villa. And I just think it was about keeping control of that game was the reason why Watkins stayed on. I mean, yeah, John Duran, he's going to be ready and raring to go.
Feels a long time since we saw him now, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he
was around.
As a player who loves the occasion, loves a big game, he will be itching to play a part at the Emirates in front of a worldwide audience. So he will be looking over to the manager probably from the first minute going, when am I coming on? Thinking, when am I going to come on? So I would expect him to be used in this game at some point.
Yeah. Okay then, Dave. Let's finish with the hot/freezing cold take. Then again, a bad week for us last week. Don't think we got. Was it me and you who did the West Ham preview, or was it me and Jacob? I can't remember. My take was wrong. My take was wrong for the Everton game as well. Did we do Everton?
Yeah, I wasn't too far off. I think I said
What did you
Watkins
come
and a
up with?
1-1, so I wasn't too far off.
Okay, that's around to 50% there. I went for Buendia to come on and score. He did come on and contribute, but he obviously didn't score. He did have a great record against Everton. What are you going for today, Dave? Have you prepped? That's the main question. You did say you would make sure you'd prepped for this. I actually haven't.
Yeah, I haven't prepped, as you might expect. I've not prepped, but I'm going to go with Jacob Ramsey because he's come so close. So I'm going to go with Jacob Ramsey to score in a score draw.
Okay. What am I going to do? I'm stressed. What am I going to come up with there? Okay.
Gonna have to hurry you.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's not even a good one, this. Someone on either side is going to score their first Premier League goal of the season. I'll go for that.
Okay.
Someone. Could be anyone. I don't know who hasn't scored this season. Mings hasn't scored, has he?
Raya, don't think he scored.
Luca Dean. I mean, I'd be very upset if David Raya managed to score against us. Luca Dean hasn't scored. Mings hasn't scored. Ramsey hasn't scored in the Premier League. So, yeah, I'm keeping this is very much Premier League based. I don't reckon Sterling scored for Arsenal in the Premier League this season if he gets a start as well. So yeah, I'm gonna go for that, Dave.
Fair play.
That's it. That's the game, isn't it? We don't do well at this. That is
the game.
The game is the game. Right then, what shall we plug before we go? I'm on the transfer shows tomorrow. Dave and I not together on a Friday, but I'm on the transfer shows on Sky Sports News tomorrow, 9 and 12. So tune into them, and also. Another self-indulgent plug. The Guardian Football Weekly podcast is out now. I did that this morning. I believe it's come out whilst we're on air here. So watch out for that as well and listen to that if you want to hear more about Villa in the Premier League action last night. Did the Everton show earlier on my own. If you can bring yourself to be bothered to listen to me on my own, I did try. Go back and listen to that. And all that's left to say really is the stuff that I said after the Everton video this morning. Please do all the things that I bang on about every single week, and we will be back on this channel probably on Monday, potentially Sunday. We'll see how it goes and see who's available to look back on the Arsenal game. So have a good rest of your Thursday. Have an excellent Friday as well. Make sure you're watching Sky Sports News either on Sky or on YouTube tomorrow at 9 and 12. And then, yeah, Saturday, if you go into the game, travel well and come back with 3 points. Maybe you'll see Prince William. Who knows? Someone I know was having drinks with Prince William yesterday. What a day that must have been with a Villa win on top of that as well after 5 defeats on the road. So, right, yeah, only one thing left to say. A big, massive up the Villa. Give us an up the Villa, Dave.
UTV.
Yeah, a bit like Villa on tour asking for the up the Villa. Up the Villa, thank you very much for watching.